Hi, I'm Associate Professor Andrea Gaynor from the University of Western Australia, and I'm talking to you today from Noongar country in southwestern Australia. When I tell people I'm an environmental historian, they're often surprised or confused. What's environmental history, they say, and this is an entirely understandable response. From the time history was professionalised in the 19th century, the global north tended to think of it as the study of great men and occasionally great women, wars and politics, religious schisms and revolutions. The proper sources for history were documents, archives, letters and reports. Then from the 1960s we started to realise there were all kinds of people who had been left out of our histories. Indigenous people, working people, women and people of colour began to appear as agents in mainstream histories. Their presence there was associated with different kinds of sources, including oral histories and artefacts. These histories often accompanied social movements claiming greater recognition and power for previously marginalised groups. And as more people began to see and resist the pillage of the living planet going on around them, environmental historians began to make nature visible, even central, in their histories. So one of the questions environmental historians ask is, how did we get here? We provide historical perspectives on problems like overfishing, pollution, unsustainable forestry and mining, natural hazards, land degradation and climate change. These histories can help us understand the true nature of the problem, ascribe responsibility and to develop informed and just solutions. Take for example the history of salinity in the Western Australian wheat belt. Cutting down woodland to make farms has led to rising saline water tables that make streams salty and agricultural land unproductive, as well as killing remnant vegetation. Historical research shows that from the 1920s, successive Western Australian governments knew that land would become saline if cleared for agriculture, but they encouraged settlers to do it anyway. This environmental history provides insights into the mechanics of willful state denial of a scientifically established environmental problem, which is actually pretty useful to reflect on in today's world. This history also holds the government to account, reminding us of its responsibility to take the lead in monitoring and remediating salinity. But environmental historians aren't only focused on current problems. We also look for deeper understanding of the changing relations between people and the living planet over time. We look at how people have responded and adapted to different environments and how they've loved nature but also destroyed it. We study how people have related to animals and how animals have made history. We look at how natural hazards become human disasters and how environmental risks and social disadvantage become entangled. We find out how non-human nature has been both used and transformed by war, by nationalism and by commerce. We look at the significance of environments for colonisation, how the colonisers were aided and abetted by plants, animals, bacteria and viruses, and how the colonised used their knowledge of country to resist and survive the invasions. We show how nature has been portrayed as a feminine object of conquest and how women have experienced and used the natural world, as farmers and scientists, as well as homemakers and artists. We study the rise of conservation and environmental movements, including their errors and exclusions, not only to celebrate gains, but also to acknowledge injustices and help us do better. While pointing to past injustice and mistakes, we also write hopeful histories of recovery, accommodation, and renewal. We work with scientists seeking data on past climates, forests, and fisheries, and with literary scholars seeking to understand how nature is captured and reflected in our stories and subjectivities. We make hidden material connections visible and show how ideas can change the world. You can keep up with some of the latest research in Australasian environmental history via the regular publication roundup on the website of the Australian and New Zealand Environmental History Network.